everybody. So today I wanted to kind of do a student critique and look at some progress that Haydar has had from our fall class. He embarked on this scene based on this kind of low fantasy village concept here. Really nice concept. I don't know which artist did this, but it's beautiful painting, great mood, and this is a perfect kind of inspirational shot that you would want to build a scene from. So Haydar's been working on this for a while, and here is where he is currently at. And I was just getting ready to do a paint over, and thought I'd share some of the critique with everybody, since it's a lot of this stuff. These are common suggestions that I usually give students. So figured you guys might have similar issues in your projects. So this I think is really strong. This is, I'd say, 80% there and just needs some polish. One of the key things that I'm going to keep going back to is identifying areas that remind you this is a video game. We're all familiar with games. We've kind of played them a lot. And you see certain things like stretched textures, harder edges, and you just kind of how the terrain works in games. And to really create that immersion, we want to find and identify those areas and take them away and hide them. And that way, when you're experiencing a world, you're not constantly reminded that this is a video game. So that's easier said than done, obviously. But let's look at here's just a few suggestions I had for the scene, and some of these are just going back closer to the original concept. So in some cases it's a ridiculous suggestion just to say, yeah, make it closer to the concept, but it's still, you kind of constantly want to go back and force yourself to identify the strengths and the inspiration, what is really important in the inspiration, see if you fall short. So first thing I would talk about a little bit is the lighting. Where Haydar's missing some of the mood and atmosphere. It's a little more stormy in the background, and he's got some nice. He does a good job of getting some of that depth and separation from the background and to the middle ground, but he's losing some of the color. I'll depending on what you ended up doing. If this is some volumetric fog, I might take a few of those clusters that you probably duplicated around and bring in some of the darker purples and blues to bring that back. Another thing here is you have really nice separation between the background and middle ground, but the separation right here is a little low, or is a little, it's not enough contrast, I don't think. So we're losing some of this detail here. It's kind of blending straight in with the bridge and everything. So you can either play with some of your fog settings and change your, how that's clamping. So you bring in the fog a little closer, but you can use your start distance. So the fog doesn't start until maybe 256 units or whatever it takes. So you have a clear separation of the foreground, background, and middle ground. So that's, in general, lighting's nice. It's a great atmosphere. It's and I don't think it has to be exactly matching the concept, because this concept, it's the key light is pretty, the directional light is pretty low, so it makes sense to increase that a little bit so you're showing off more of your modeling, and that's fine, I think. Now, in some cases, you can just add a little more damage, like on the roof. It's all about showing off the modeling work you're doing. And if you have some of the modeling work in here and you're hiding it, and there's a good opportunity with some backlight, you might as well take advantage of that. So that's I do the same thing kind of down here. It's worth tweaking those edges and really polishing that area. Whereas here, this is one of the spots that kind of remind you, oh, we're looking at a video game screenshot. So that's something we want to put some energy into fixing. Another area right in the foreground, this is a pretty This is prime real estate right here. You have a nice terrain material, but you don't need to really show that much of it. And I remember you had some decent rock models, but so you could either use one of those or a newer boulder. You're trying to show off all the skills that you've been developing, so you might as well have a nice boulder in there. Rather, it's the same concept of showing, rather than having a bunch of separate models that don't go together. Try to fit all your skill set, show off all your skill set in one environment. So that's a good opportunity for it. And it's okay, when you get down to that level of changing details from a concept, a boulder placement, something like that's not going to change it drastically, and it's pretty vague in here anyway. So I think you can deviate a little bit if it helps show off your skill set. Another thing, we want to use lighting to kind of guide and direct the eye of the user to areas that are well done, and also just kind of moving throughout the whole piece. Now the concept does a great job of that, but you can also add some additional point lights. So if we focus on this area here, there's not much separation. You're not showing off the form very well. The light, we do have some nice strong lighting coming in, but it doesn't seem to be hitting these boards. So if you have a scenario like that and we want to show off this plane, then you can add a point light right in here, even if it's not exactly accurate. You can kind of fudge things a little bit once you're getting closer to polish. We know the lighting is coming in from the side here, and it's hitting these boards. The grasses look nice and vibrant. So a point light here would still make sense. No one in the world is going to call BS on that, and it's going to help form these objects. We can use lighting to help shape things. Without light, nothing would. It would just all be black, and you wouldn't recognize any form. So we can use that to our advantage. Okay, so moving down some of these other areas, like this is just another reminder. Oh, this is a game, a big swatch of terrain. It'd be nice if we take and add some boulders. Now, I use these a couple spots. Here's another big area of just flat terrain that we can accent with some boulders that would help break up the silhouette, and I think that'd be really strong to add. Now these I might do as one boulder here, kind of a nice unique ZBrush sculpt that you can rotate and scale for the smaller versions. So I'm not talking about adding 6 more custom rocks. I think you can do this with one big formation and then a couple small boulders that you use the vegetation painting and just add these kind of rock crumbles wherever you want to break up that terrain. And that can be using the same boulders that you kind of use up front and hand place. It doesn't all have to be using vegetation painter, but it could be a mix. Another thing that I think would look really nice and break up some of the path. But first, I really like how you handled the path. I think that's one of the strongest things in here. It feels really natural. And I think you could add some puddle decals with a pretty high gloss, so it's sucking in some of the sky colors and everything. And again, using that lighting to help the viewer kind of explore the piece naturally without having to force themselves to. So add the rocks, the puddles. Now, a quick side deal here. The scale on this fence really dwarfs this building. It makes it seem a lot smaller than it actually should be. So if we look at your other isolated building shot here, it really does. These posts look enormous. The actual planks look, like 2 times the height and thickness. So I would suggest, if we look at the kind of dropping the height drastically, increasing the plank amount via texture, but then also cutting out the geometry and making that less of a razor sharp 3D line, decreasing the width of the post. So all those things I think will help this building seem more, the scale will be more correct. Now, as far as some material work, this feels, I think I've commented on this before, but this feels a little too clean still. So whether you use decals or some vertex color to get some additional AO under the planks and help anchor some of these, and also increasing the contrast on the cracks of the board, but still leaving the wood relatively smooth, so it's not overly noisy. And you've done these kind of caps, these boards on the side. I don't think, I think it would be a good opportunity to actually model out some side shingles. You'll see this all the time in games, Assassin's Creed and things like that. And it's really not going to be much geometry. Anytime you're dealing with detail that you can make out of like box geometry, then that's detail that you want to keep in your level. It's super cheap and it adds a lot of depth and believability. So one way I would do this is start with the geometry you already have. Maybe shift drag out the edge. You could even preserve UVs or whatever, so you don't have to re-UV that, and then just cut right into the geometry you're looking at, because you'll already have the textures there, so you can cut that shape out. It's only going to add 50 or 60 tries for a whole side here or a whole piece, and then you can shell that, so you'll get the thickness. Depending on the thickness of the shell, you might not even need to touch up those stretch UVs, but I think that'll look good. And again, that's identifying areas that are going to be strong silhouettes and adding detail there, versus it's not going to make much difference if we start pulling boards out on a flat surface that you're never going to see, especially inside like here. So that's what you want to think about. So with that in mind, if we fix those scale issues on the building, drop the fence down, this will seem like it fits in more. Also, I really like some of the kind of crooked stick work and stuff you have up here. That's really strong. I think you could do more of it down with this foundation on the kind of the supports and everything, rather than this just, it looks unfinished. Then making a variant of one of these. Currently you have, it's another reminder, hey, this is a game, this is the same asset over and over again, just kind of cookie cutter. So with, probably spending 1 hour, you can either, maybe even on the same asset, just one side of the roof, you add kind of a hole cut out of the thatching, so you could literally just kind of remove some of that thatching geometry and cut some edges, and then just put some additional support hinting at the kind of understructure there. You probably already have that geometry there anyway. So I think that's a lot, pretty much. Yeah. So you're close, and that's why I said 80% there. You make these changes to this point, and it's going to be a really strong piece. Basically, I'd like you to get to the point where I have no other feedback, and it's close to there. As far as the trees look okay in the distance here, but if you're showing off the tree as a isolated object, I would put more effort into these. This almost looks like a sapling, so some of the same scale issues as the temple. So really find, this is the reference we use in the class demo, and the relationship between the branch size, even how large the pine needles are and everything, in reference to the trunk. This is there's so many student trees that have this same issue, so really respect the proportion between the branch size and the thickness of the trunk and the actual size. A lot of times it'll be good to have more dead branches and spikes and things at the bottom. Give yourself that flexibility. You could even do one tree like this and then make a couple variants just by varying how far down the trunk height goes, and that would get you a long way with relatively low amount of rework. Yeah. So I hope that helps you, Haydar, on your scene. Again, I'm really impressed with your progress, and I hope other people got something out of